Break in progress.
Participants or chambers may close. Okay. Now I want to. So what I really want to do is disconnect audio.
Well, that's not. That's for the overall. Yeah, it's overall. So it'd be like you guys might have a project.
Let me tell you what happened. The Wimble raised the world endurance.
Oh, it was before me, but I do heard the stories.
Remember that. So anyways. At the end, when it was all over, and it was, they're thinking of this thing. Well, we're in sixth grade. That's what Trinity. So I want to have your Scots flag or scone.
Okay. Hi, Katie. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay, I did not hear you can you speak again? Let me see if you hear you through the speakers.
Hi, Rick. Can you hear me now?
I'm going to try again because I don't hear you enough. Try again.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Ben, you're good?
Okay.
Okay, sorry for the little bit of late setup. We're getting some things organized here.
No
And
worries.
Katie, one question for you. I see Dana Hauser is not here. Were you expecting her or not?
No, she told me that she wasn't going to come.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. We have a full agenda. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the audience, if you will.
Okay.
And one of the things I'm going to do as we go through, depending on how the public comment goes, if I feel like we need to have more time for a little bit of back and forth, we can do that, but we have to be consistent. So like before, and for the people in the room, in these meetings, we have rules that we have to operate by. And one of them is normally in a Board of Supervisors meeting, public comment is 3 minutes and the board does not engage or respond. And sometimes that's very frustrating for you in the audience, especially in this case, because we're kind of working on something for some of you in the audience. So I'm thinking what we will do is allow still the 3 minutes for comment and or questions, but then we'll also allow 3 to 5 minutes for the board interaction to try to address some of that. And I even feel like if we find that it would be beneficial and appropriate, we can pause this meeting, have the non-ad hoc members step out, and then without a quorum of the board, there could be full open dialogue for a little while, just because we already have people here. So we'll see if we need to do that or not. Hopefully just good public comment, good presentations, good discussion, and some effective answers to questions. We'll not need that. So with
Great.
that in mind, Katie, you are usually the one taking us through the first part of the agenda. So if you can just take us down that road, that'd be great.
Definitely. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, and it's up for the people in the audience.
Perfect. So I just like to start every meeting just to kind of go over the timeline, where we've been, where we're kind of heading towards. So we started this project back in March. We've compiled the district data. from March until the end of the project, we're going to continue on our stakeholder outreach and education and consensus building with all of the lodging owners that we're thinking of becoming part of our district. And then I did draft a service plan back in March that was approved by the board. So we moved on to drafting that initial management district plan. And so far, we're just still in our outreach and engagement, and we continue to move forward with that to get as much feedback as we can to hopefully finalize a management district plan this month, and submit it to staff for their review and approval so then we can get started on that petition drive as soon as possible. Once we get over that 50% threshold, we will submit those petitions to the county, have those petitions verified, and then we can move on to the hearing process. So we have those 3 stops at the Board of Supervisors. One is the resolution of intention to form the district, and that can be on consent calendar. We will then mail a notice out for the public meeting and hearing. And then have 2 more hearings at the Board of Supervisors. One is a public meeting. There's no action required by the Board of Supervisors, but it allows for the public to come and speak to the Board of Supervisors about the district, and then have that final public hearing and adoption of the resolution of formation, which then can form the district and businesses then begin starting paying the assessment. So that's the timeline so far. It is ever changing as we move through the process, but any questions about the timeline, the process, any of that?
I just want to clarify, Katie, for everyone, including the folks in audience. And I told you how many are in the room. I see 5 participants total online. So
Mhm.
that's probably you, the county, me, and 2 others.
Yeah.
But as you said, we're in this stage of engagement and outreach.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made when you're trying to establish
Mhm.
this investment or tourism development district in our case. And what we've been doing is trying to get to a point where we feel like we have good information to share and engage, and
Mhm.
then collect feedback that lets us know, are we on the right track or not? We
Mhm.
can then make changes before we get to what you have here as the submit the MDP and start the petition and so forth.
Mhm. Yes. So
But at
before
the
the petition drive, we
Yeah,
can make any changes. Yeah.
right. But
Mhm.
once we start the petition, so once we formally come
Mhm.
to the lodging business owners and
Mhm.
say, we're looking to see if you support or don't support this can't change.
Correct.
But right
Unless we want,
now, yeah, but
yeah.
right now it can, so that's why we're in
Mhm.
this mode of sharing. And then I did hand out for the people here in the audience, and I think everybody else has this already, the fact sheet. It's kind of like a
Mhm.
frequently asked questions document that reflects what we've come up with so far. And
Mhm.
that's what we either have been or are planning to use as we do our outreach and try to get feedback. So
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
all
Mhm.
right? Okay, so, and board members, did you have any other questions about that and where we are? Okay.
Okay. As we move forward, I kind of wanted to bring up into discussion, and this can be talked more as we get to our action items. But did want to mention there are some slight confusion about the name of the district. Tourism Development District, I guess I can give a background of how we came here. So in the first meeting with me and the advisory board, we were trying to decide on a name. We first were at the Tourism Improvement District, which is TID, which is most commonly seen throughout California for these districts. But the group wanted to go in a different direction and name it Trinity County Tourism Development District. Um, Now we've been hearing maybe some confusion about what a tourism development district is. But I want everyone to know in the room and for anyone else in the future that this tourism development district that we're forming follows the 94 law, and operates the same way as a TID, or even people can sometimes see T bids, tourism business improvement districts. Sometimes they're even called TMDs, tourism marketing districts. So all these names and acronyms mean the same thing, and they all operate the same way through the same legal mechanism. And in our case, this tourism development district operates in the same way as that legal mechanism for the 94 law in the same process. So because there's so much confusion, I do maybe advise that we possibly go back to the tourism improvement district or even tourism business improvement district, since that's what people know and understand. And then maybe there will be less confusion, but I will totally leave that to the board to decide. But I wanted to bring that up as we, move forward through the agenda.
Oh, thanks, you were clarifying. And
Mhm.
just, again, I know the board is aware, but will you take a minute to explain the vast differences between whatever we call this and
Mhm.
TOT?
Yes, so TOT is a bed tax, and it's a transient occupancy tax. Each county has a different TOT rate, even cities have different TOT rates. So I believe it's 5% right now in Trinity County for the TOT bed tax rate, which is completely different than what this assessment rate is. So this is an assessment, not a tax. All the funds would go back to the nonprofit corporation that is managing the district and their day-to-day, so it cannot be diverted to government funds. There's no free riders. Everyone paying the business needs to benefit from those funds and the services being offered through the district. So that's where it's different than TOT. TOT can go into general funds, as we've seen in the past in different counties and cities. And typically isn't given back to the lodging owners to help with tourism. So that's the difference, and that's why we're coming here today to hopefully form this district. So there are funds that cannot be diverted to government funds, like the general fund and stuff like that. So it's a more stable funding source for the lodging providers in Trinity County. Anything else I could clarify on that?
Can you clarify what we've been working on who manages the nonprofit or the governing board of these funds?
Yeah, definitely. So right now, our what we're looking to do is form a nonprofit corporation that would handle the day-to-day functions of the district. With that nonprofit formed, we would then have a board of directors who would be all lodging providers that are in the district to make those big decisions of what the funds are being used for, as long as they're following, as long as it's in the plan. So um, that's the governing board is going to be the ones making those decisions. And previous conversations we've had advisory board, we'd like to stick with those who are being assessed and having them be those lodging providers who would be making those big decisions. So that's how the government structures we're planning to make it to be.
And from a timing standpoint,
Mhm.
is it correct that the board, the nonprofit filing and the proposed board for that nonprofit need to be part of all of the documents that are reflected by a signature on the petition?
Yeah. So, um, yes, I definitely agree with you, Rick, on that.
Okay, so that means, we are, at least the way we're working with it right now, we're thinking that
Mhm.
the board members would have to be people that are contributing to the
Mhm.
program, that
Mhm.
we, through our outreach, I believe what we were talking about was, as we see if people are interested in supporting it, we're also seeing if they would be interested in serving on the board, because somebody might want to support it, but not have to do all the board work. And
Mhm.
then that would allow us to be in a position to put proposed names on the agenda, or I mean, on the documents. But
Mhm.
that then has to be finalized as we go to the board, or I mean, to the petition process. can be changed later by the board and the members of the district, but we have to have a starting point. All that
Yeah,
correct?
and for the nonprofit corporation, I can go into more details because I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. But for now, if you want to get started on forming that nonprofit corporation, we could use the county's information for now, or someone on the advisory board for the contact person to receive the mail, and then amend those later once we have more concrete information about where the nonprofit will be and who will be the contact person for the nonprofit as well. So those can be also amended if you want to get the process started.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions from the board? Advisory board?
But just on that last comment,
Mhm.
I think it's come up before, whether or not there needed to be a signature or a person's social security number. When my experience with developing a corporation or a nonprofit is that they issue you an EIN number. You don't have to have one individual.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
So when I was talking to our legal analyst that helps with a lot of these nonprofit corporation formations, she let me know that for if there's any time that needs to be a social, my boss and the owner of Civitas will put his social down. So no one will need to put their social down for the EIN. It will just go through Civitas, but everything else can be amended. If you want to put the county as the address and someone on the advisory board as the main contact, and then that can be amended once we have more concrete details, if that makes sense.
And then if that's the process that we follow,
Mhm.
how and when does the social security number associated with the EIN change?
So that would stay the same through Civitas. So John Lambeth, who's the owner of Civitas, will put down his social for the EIN number.
Okay. And if we wanted to provide somebody else's social security number, we could.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Civitas will not have any ongoing control or costs associated with the use of the owner's social security number if we choose to go that path.
Correct. Yeah. There's no control by Civitas.
And no ongoing fees because we're using that social security number.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right. I'm just
Mhm.
trying to answer some questions that have come to me. So just trying to make
Yeah,
sure.
no problem.
So again, we could choose one of our social security numbers if we want. There's very few of us that would be qualified to be on that board. Leah, I guess you're in the lodging industry, and if we open this up for other businesses to voluntarily contribute and board members could be involved outside of lodging if they're contributing, then, perhaps someone like Ryan could do that if that's again the way the process came out. But for now, is the board still comfortable moving forward with letting Civitas, the way they've done it in most other cases, just use their CEO's social security number and that's how it's associated?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And again,
Great.
we'll be sharing all this with the lodging business owners as we go through this
Mhm.
engagement process. And if somebody has another proposal, suggestion, concern, whatever, we can address that, take it back, and we just need to, these are some of the things we have to finalize soon to go to the petition stage.
Mhm.
Okay. Other
Okay.
questions before we move on? Okay.
Awesome. So the next on the agenda is just talking about outreach. I wanted to give the opportunity for anyone on the board to talk about how their outreach has been going, if any feedback they've gotten, or and then also some of our plans for the ad hoc committee and what we're planning.
I'm sorry, say that again. I was taking notes.
I wanted to see if anyone wanted to, on the board, to give out how their outreach has been going, their progress, and if anyone has gotten any feedback or would like to share anything with the group.
Okay, so this is under item 3 here, discuss
3,
the outreach
yes.
strategy and so forth. So
Mhm.
I guess
I'm not experimenting. I was waiting for the kind of like a go-ahead, something maybe, going in the mail and then being a contact for that. But I could start, talking to people. I just didn't feel, we were gonna go at it out there before everyone was, kind of like a campaign, like, okay, let's go now because of what happened previously with a few people getting, excited, I don't know, getting the wrong information or that sort of thing. And the town hall meeting sounded like, one option, and then it didn't, because if anyone went to the town hall that was in a different district, they'd be, kind of like, yeah, I don't know, that got confusing. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all hitting the streets, so to speak, at the same time.
Okay, well, for clarification from my purpose then, and then the ad hoc committee can weigh in on this. My understanding is that Katie has provided us with this FAQ
Great.
with the contact information
Cover letter.
and with a suggested starting point for a cover letter on an email or hand delivered or whatever you want to do. So we are all provided with what we need to reach out, and we should be reaching out now.
Okay.
And then the ad hoc committee, the difference that they have is that they can get up to 3 of them together and have group meetings, and we can have group meetings too. We can pull
Mhm.
together people from our own districts and say, hey, we want to get all the people together in this district and have a conversation, and we'll do the individual outreach. But they can collectively bring a group of people together, but the whole board can't do that because of Brown Act concerns. So anyway, you've got absolutely the green light. We
Okay,
all have what we're
okay.
going to use to outreach or reach out. And what we want to do that, we probably, before we finish this meeting, should have a time frame for when we're saying we're going to bring back whatever feedback we're bringing, because we have to at some point move to petition. But we don't want to do that before we've had a chance to get some feedback.
So the letter that she provided us isn't going to go out in advance.
No,
It's
you
going
send
out
that
through
out.
us
When?
whenever you send it.
Or whenever I send it. I had a conversation with Katie. She said that, have they been sent out? No. She said that we agreed last meeting that the county would send them out. Katie, can you remind me what you had responded to my question about? I said, the letter looked great. I didn't know if we were using our own individual emails. And you said, no, we decided to use District 4 through the county as an email. So, best regards would be the county email with District 4 for each one of us, that you would disperse, or the county would disperse them accordingly if we were,
I
or-
thought it was just a county or an email just for general information, like if people
Yeah.
contact. So like we're each responsible for our own districts to kind of communicate, send this sample email to them with yours. So they should be communicating with you directly.
I would think so.
And so,
But
yeah,
then
so you send
that
it
was my
from
question,
your,
is that I need a new email to do that, because I get 30, emails a day, so I can't use my
Oh.
current email. I'd want to use something that was a little bit more distinguished, from, which I could do. So have you sent the letters out?
I've sent some to some businesses, yeah, in
Yeah,
our in
okay.
District 1.
So, my bad. And then, and you put, your name and your
Yeah, and I
email.
just added for information that I think was relevant to my district. You know your district
Mhm.
best, so
Yeah.
I did what I had, but that helped give some guidelines, and then asked
Okay.
if they wanted to meet with you. Because the other option is to have ad hoc meet with your districts, but we have to be careful. Like if you're meeting with them, then we can't, like, so if you're communicating with them,
Mhm.
we just have to be careful of that. So it's like ad hoc can reach out, but
Yeah.
then that means you can't talk to them.
Yeah, well, talking
we
to
want
them
you
is
to talk to
probably
them.
the only thing when they're, most of them are downriver. And they're on the other, on the other line of a traffic, issue now that's, 30 minutes of, plus the 40 miles. So, yeah, so, I'm glad to hear that, us talking about that. I didn't know, I got it, in the mail, is an email, and I thought she wanted approval. And then I asked about, whether I would be using my, email, and, I thought, Katie, I thought your response was, no, we're going through the county.
Sorry about that. miscommunication. I thought when you were asking about the FAQ, whose email would be using on the FAQ, and that's what I was answering. So I apologize for that.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Okay, well, and so
Mhm.
we'll just
Yeah.
move down and let's hear an update. So you said you've
Yeah.
done some outreach. Why don't you give your update?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, so in your area, if you feel like a town hall would be better or a way to like gather
Not at
people.
all.
Okay,
Not at
no,
all.
don't worry about it, never mind.
You're good then.
I've done lots of town halls. down there,
Okay.
but they don't work.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
starting to reach out to some businesses. There's a lot in District 1, so we're just trying to find a way to kind of best to get a hold of people and let them know what's going on. I'm trying to do a lot of personal outreach.
And do you want to give any sense of?
I have
this
some updates, but I
quali-
want to add it to when we do the management plan. I
Okay,
think that'll
great.
save
Yeah,
time.
that's fine. Perfect.
In my district, I talked to one of the top 10 and she was a absolute yes. And she had interest on the board. I did speak with John here in the audience for about an hour. And we were supposed to meet today at noon, but I think my email got lost.
Oh, no.
And I did outreach with the Weaverville Chamber to ask their assistance
Oh, good.
to see if anybody on the chamber had any relationships with any of the big lodging owners. And so I do have, I'm going to get with John after this meeting. I do have some information to pass to him. And one of the chamber members, John and I, are going to have a lunch date soon to catch up where we were.
Okay.
And then I do have a message into another one of the top 10 in my district, and left a voicemail. So I'm waiting for a call back there.
Okay. Ben?
Well, two people in my district. And one of Journey's End, one of the businesses is in the process of being sold. So I do know the new owners. They used to be a tenant of ours. So see about that. And on Wednesday, I'm going to meet with Brenda Heaton at the South Fork Mountain Outpost and see what they have to say.
Okay.
My question is, if we get the 51% and the people that don't want it, they have to pay
Yes.
assessment? Now, is there going to also be a penalty if they don't, if they refuse to pay?
Katie, do you want to explain how that works?
Yes, and I can talk about further. It's within the management district plan. There's outlining of, interest and fees and that sort if they don't end up paying.
Okay.
So we'll cover that later, Ben, but thank you for the update and the question. Liam, did you have anything? Okay. And I don't know of Dana unless she shared anything with one of the other ad hoc
I
members.
think she reached out to all of the businesses in her district, so if
Mhm.
people are wanting to meet with her, she's open to meet.
That's great. Okay.
Great. Well, on the ad hoc
Hold on,
committee
hold on,
end.
Katie. Katie, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Liam, could you get your mic down so they can, she didn't hear you.
Come up with your top 10.
Civitas was able to provide just names and phone numbers of the top 10 lodging owners, but no other information was given to us. So
Mhm.
just knowing the ones that are in my district, making phone calls and reaching out that way.
You protected the confidential information and yet been able to
Correct,
focus
yeah.
efforts.
Mhm.
Great.
And I don't know who's bigger than the next guy. There's not like
Not 1 through
No.
10.
yeah, it's just in alphabetical
Random,
order.
totally
Yeah,
random.
random. Yeah, we don't know who's bigger than who.
Great, you found 10 of them.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And then Dana, next time can give us an update on that. So go ahead, Katie, what did you have for us next?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about a little bit with the outreach. So the ad hoc committee, we're talking about possibly doing an informational webinar for all the lodging owners. So hopefully we plan to have that soon, but we're planning to do that as part of our outreach with the ad hoc committee, and then possibly set up those open houses or those town hall meetings this month too. So look out for that for anyone who wants to join that, if there are any lodging providers out there in the audience. But yeah, so that's
I
our
have a
plans
question.
for more outreach.
So if it's a webinar, people in
Mhm.
my district might be able to sign up for that more easily than,
Mhm.
because they, come from Eureka and Willow
Mhm.
Creek and that sort of thing. So that would be several that would take the heat off me. There's over 34 more
Mhm.
businesses.
Great, then we'll definitely do that. this month. And we invite everyone just for an informational webinar and an overview education of tourism districts and then what we're kind of proposing. So we'll plan to have that this month. Okay, great. As I move on, I want to talk about voluntary agreements because I know that was brought up at our last meeting. So this is also in the material section of the agenda. Just a pros and cons list of voluntary agreements. So right now, a tourism district or our tourism district follows the 94 law, the business or property and business improvement district law of 1994. And those districts are compulsory districts, meaning that all lodging businesses within the boundaries of the district must pay the assessment. But there are voluntary agreements. So if there are any businesses outside of the district boundaries or they're not being assessed, there's an opportunity where they could join the tourism district on a voluntary basis. So they're referred to as voluntary agreements, and they're available for businesses if they decide it's in their best interest for both the business and the nonprofit corporation that they're signing this agreement with. So the process is pretty similar, outreach to any local businesses that you may think want to be involved in the district that aren't in the district boundaries or they're not being currently assessed. Because I know there was talks about possibly adding in non-lodging businesses as a voluntary agreement. So if you know any of those businesses, it's an option to do a voluntary agreement. And then these businesses would choose to opt into the district by signing an agreement with the nonprofit corporation, or in this sense, the example is a DMO, a destination marketing organization. Any questions about voluntary districts I can answer before going on into like the pros and cons of voluntary agreements?
I have something.
Yeah.
So, voluntary assessment on their business, is it decided the rate? Would it be the same rate as the lodging owners?
So that's decided upon the contract written up. Most of the time, we've seen voluntary agreements that just exactly mimic to what the district plan says. So the assessment rate, they typically pay the same. But there's also opportunity, since it is a voluntary agreement between the two parties, to write in a different assessment rate that is agreed upon. But in most sense, we see them being assessed at the same rate.
And the decision about that rate would be between that business and the board that's put together for this, to run this organization.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Would similar businesses need to be notified? So if they wanted to, that was happening, or is it just kind of, and the other question, of course, is when we initially talked about, just lodging owners or other businesses and assessing them, we agreed on lodging because it was more within our time frame. So how does this slide through the timeline? Or
So yeah, it doesn't change anything with the timeline. It's one contract that is just decided upon between the business and the nonprofit corporation. So it can be done at any time, even after the district has formed, if that makes sense. So sometimes they form exactly at the same time, these voluntary agreements, as when the district forms, or there are opportunities if, say, in year two, a business comes to you and say, hey, I saw you guys are doing this district. I really want to be a part of it. Is there an opportunity I can? They can do a voluntary agreement and say they want to do it for the last 3 years of the district. So it's all decided upon when the contract is made for these agreements.
So
Thank you.
for these contracts, do you have to write anything into the management plan that you're allowing this, or how does this work? So it's like, is it with the board itself has these agreements that has a contract, or what?
Yeah, so we can write it into the MDP if you'd like, or the management district plan. But typically they're nothing's written into the plan. It's just an option on the side for a contract with the nonprofit corporation, if that makes sense. And you had another question too, right, Leah?
I have a question. Where do I
Oh.
find the 94 law? How do I look?
I can, it's in the management district plan, appendix 1, which is in the agenda for today, has the law in there, or I could send you a copy, but the easiest way is it's in the management district plan.
I think, so I talked to some lodging and they're for this voluntary agreement if they were like,
Mhm.
if the businesses are assessed at the same rate.
Okay. So would you guys want to write that into the plan possibly, that if any voluntary agreements were um, happening, they should be assessed at the same rate as those being assessed in the district? Because we definitely can include a section like that.
I kind of like the idea of leaving it up to the governing board, the
Mhm.
profit board, and letting them decide what's, for them.
There might be some issues of popularity. I think it would be nice to have more, more representation than just lodging owners, maybe.
Yeah, and these voluntary agreements are a really good option if any non-lodging businesses would like to join the district.
Well, unless we have other input, I'm fine with us just leaving that open. And basically the board that is put in place to run this district would then have that authority to decide what percentage they're going to require. But it would have to, Katie, be the same for all voluntary businesses. There would have to be consistency, correct?
With these contracts, there doesn't need to be consistency. So there's some cons if I scroll down here. The contract consistency can differ. So, and same with the free rider problem. Some pay a certain level depending how the contract's written. So if the nonprofit corporation wants to make every single contract be done the same way, then they totally can. Or if they want a different contract with each different business, it can make things more complicated, but it will give the board of the nonprofit corporation ability to figure out which assessment rate they want to assess those businesses. But that can make the contract enforcement kind of difficult,
Yeah,
and
I would
managing
imagine.
those contracts if they
And
all have
Katie,
different types of rates.
If we do set this up to be handled by the governing board of the new district,
Mhm.
can Civitas still, as part of our process that we're already paying for, provide us with the sample contracts that that nonprofit could then use for that purpose?
That is a great question. I have gotten that question up quite a few times, but unfortunately, because these contracts are very unique to each specific district, we don't have a template outline that we can provide, but we can definitely, later on, if the governing board wants to, use us to draft some of those contracts, we can definitely do that.
But we can't do that with you now while we're already paying you.
Oh, yeah. While you're now paying me, paying Civitas, we can definitely work on any contracts that will come up. But I don't have a template to give out because they're very specific to each district, if that makes sense.
Okay, so my
Mhm.
encouragement would be that the ad hoc committee would add that to an agenda to work with Katie and draft a contract that the board could at least consider. That way they wouldn't have to start from scratch or
Mhm.
pay Civitas more money later. If we're already paying for the month, then just add it to the work that we do that month. And then that board would have a starting point. They could change it however they wanted. They could do the percentages however they wanted, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So we wouldn't write anything into the plan. It would just be optional for the board to decide if they wanted to let businesses in.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I imagine I'm already jumping ahead to the requirements for the board to, the pie-shaped thing where you have, sales and marketing and infrastructure and everything.
But let's hold off on that.
Okay,
Because if that's where you're going, let's
that's where
just
I'm
hold off.
going.
Okay, yeah,
okay.
because that's on the agenda coming, but.
Okay.
So here, I just want to make sure we're all clear, including people, in the audience virtually or in person. So this voluntary thing is all about, as Ben explained, if you're in this short-term lodging business and 51% or more say, we want to do this, then everyone has to do it in that business. And if only 49% say yes, then nobody has to do it because it doesn't happen. But once it's established, then the board that's in place can reach out to any businesses and say, hey, would you like to participate? We'd love to have your money to help spend on tourism and bring more in and those sorts of things. But it would be up to that board to decide to do that, if that they want to do it, how they want to do it, what they want to charge. We would just be setting the stage by getting a draft contract for them and setting the stage for it. Katie, do we need to write into the plan that this is a possibility so that the way we've worded it allows for it, or it can be allowed for without us doing any special wording?
It could be allowed without any special wording, but we can always include it if you feel like we should include it, but it's not required.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, again, as we reach out to people, we can get feedback and see how people that would actually be on the board feel about that aspect of it. Yes, Ben?
Would the voluntary assessment, would that be like a tax deductible
It's
donation type thing, or?
be it just like everybody else who's in the program, my understanding is they would add whatever that percentage assessment is to their bill to their client. That money would
Mhm.
come into the same nonprofit and it would get spent the same way as everything else. So not tax deductible or anything. It's just an assessment we're collecting from the people doing business with us, and we're sharing it to help drive tourism.
Mhm.
That correct, Katie? Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Answer your question, Ben? Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Katie,
great.
anything else?
Not unless there's any other questions about voluntary agreements, but if not, we can move on to, I think public comment is next, but I can
Okay.
totally answer any more questions.
Okay, thank you. So
Mhm.
in this case, oh, it looks like all the people that are online are part of us. So I don't have to, I
Mhm.
just worry about people in the audience. So again, some of this stuff is weird if you're not used to these board meetings, but this public comment, the agenda specifically says, it's time for information on from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. And there isn't one here, a consent calendar. All comments limited to 3 minutes must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. And when addressing the board, state your name. For the record, address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. It's a big mouthful to say, right now is just a time to talk about things that aren't on the agenda. So if you have something that you want to talk about, but it's on the agenda, just give me a minute, because with each one of these subjects, I'll give you a public comment section. So with that, does anybody have public comment that things that aren't on the agenda? I know it's so confusing. It's the fun of government. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do then is review the nonprofit corporation formation timeline. And
Mhm.
it says Civitas will review the formation of a new nonprofit timeline. The board will discuss and approve nonprofit corporation parameters. So what we're going to do here is let Katie explain this to us. Then we can give public comment, and that can include you asking questions and so forth. And again, it's weird, but we won't answer you in the moment. We'll let you finish your 3 minutes, and then we'll try to answer questions and so forth collectively. I know it's crazy, but so Katie, why don't you take us through this, and we'll get board clarity, then we'll take public comment and then move to the next item.
Okay, great. So I've showed this corporation formation timeline a few times. We did reserve the name that we talked about last time, Tourism Development District, I believe is what we decided on. So we've reserved that name. And the next item to do is to draft the initial articles of incorporation, get that approved by the advisory board here. File that articles of incorporation with the Secretary of State, sign this form that's called SS-4, which authorizes us, Civitas, to file the employee identification number, which is the EIN that we talked about previously. Then we'll move on to obtaining that EIN, draft those initial bylaws, have the advisory board review and approve those bylaws, and then hopefully in July, we can hold our first initial board meeting, appoint the board of directors that would be lodging providers, adopt those bylaws and any amendments to those bylaws, and elect officers in July. And then all the rest would be filing the statement of information with Secretary of State, drafting that power of attorney, and then preparing and reviewing the IRS tax exempt application. So this process, hopefully finish it in July, then just the last couple steps take 5 to 10 months, but once we get the IRS tax exempt status, we can then get it with the state as well. So this is a timeline to form that nonprofit corporation formation. In order to move on, I know I mentioned previously, we can use the county's address and either someone on the advisory board to file those initial articles of incorporation and start drafting those, and then amend those later once we have an official board of directors. So if we want to move on with that process, I can definitely get that started with my legal team, but I wanted to get the board's opinion first before we move forward.
Okay, so first what I'm gonna do is ask questions and this isn't still, I think, what you were trying to get to.
No.
We'll get there.
No.
But any questions about this from the board that we get clarification from Katie? I know we've been over it a few times.
Do
Mhm.
the, do you need to start working with the ad hoc on any of this, or is this stuff?
I would task my legal team to start drafting the initial articles of incorporation, and then I would have the ad hoc committee just give a good read through, make sure it's good, and then I'd bring it to the advisory board.
And so I would say the only reason we wouldn't say to, okay, go, is if we are concerned that the lodging industry participants wouldn't like the name, or for some reason don't like the structure or something, but otherwise, the sooner we get this going, the sooner we have it formed, approved, and ready to be
Mhm.
active. But again, any other questions or thoughts? Because we can come back to making a decision here in a minute, but I want to give you a chance for public comment. Okay, so now, this is public comment about specifically this timeline of forming the nonprofit corporation that would, if there is a tourism investment district approved by the lodging business owners, this would be the entity that would run it. So do you have any public comment about this timeline? Anything about this timeline and what she's just laid out here? So if you have any public comment about that?
This is the
please
creation
join us.
of the nonprofit. So the nonprofit, I don't remember what we called it. So it's whatever
Yeah,
the
tourism.
name is. So it can be, I think, Trinity Tourism.
So for the consistency, we'll have 3 minutes, and we won't directly engage in that 3 minutes, but we'll spend some time afterwards so that we can keep going.
Start. Okay. So with all these acronyms being thrown around, I understand, and I've done enough research to know that there are a difference between a TDD. I don't know if this is a TDD because it is a public and private partnership. I've been trying to get clarification on that. I know you guys can't answer it. A TDD is a public and private partnership. It's even written in big letters so everybody can see it. The difference between a TDD and a T-bid, there is no public. And in fact, what threw a red flag to me was when Rick said that they're going to spend 30,000 on this, and he had approval for another 70,000. The last time they did this in 2016, if the T-bid, which was all lodging owners were going to be on the board, would have to pay that $25,000 back to the Chamber of Commerce. I emailed Rick, I said, you're already throwing 30,000 at this thing. You've got an approval from the other supervisors to throw another 70,000 at this thing. you're gonna put us in the hole. If it's voted in, you're going to put us in the hole $100,000. How are we gonna pay that back in a 5-year span? It's not even on that, it's not even on your little pie chart, how to pay that back. My question, so that's when it started, and then he said, oh, we don't have to pay that back, that the county is generously affording this T-bid or TDD, which means they're in it. If they're trying to do this public-private partnership, well, I got news for you. The TOT was supposed to be a public and private conglomeration. County would take the money in and then promote the entire county. Well, we all know where that went. So for me to say, and the fact, here again, we haven't even been notified. I'm looking at your thing up here. And when I look at the creation of either a TDD or a T-bid, the assessed properties are the very first person that's supposed to approach the Board of Supervisors. We're supposed to come to an agreement and approach the supervisors. That's not happening. You guys all decided, hey, we got great ideas how to spend these people's money, and let's get this going, and we'll do all the heavy lifting, make all their decisions. So, you know, these stupid peons that have built these businesses aren't making any of the decisions. Here I am again, watching you guys say, well, should we let these people in? Well, you know, why don't you go up to the Shasta Ski Park where those people decided to voluntarily join, and guess what they did? Once they got this thing formed, guess what they did? They pulled out.
Sorry, that's the 3 minutes. Okay, we'll be back with other aspects of this process, but for the timeline, let's, I'll set another timer here, and we have 3 minutes for board members and or Katie to try to kind of respond to that and address some of the issues that were raised. And Katie, I will start with something and then ask you to weigh in and make sure that we're addressing this correctly. So I'm going to start. Again, I'm just trying to do this for consistency purposes. So I want to clarify, yes, the county is contributing the money, paying the bills to Civitas to help set this up. The county will have no involvement going forward, and the money does not have to be repaid. The board has approved 30,000. There was an interest or a willingness by the board to support additional funding if needed, but the advisory board said they didn't feel like they needed it. So right now, it's just 30,000 that the county will have contributed, and it is basically an investment to try to help the lodging business owners establish a tourism investment district. And the process, Katie, where I really want you to weigh in on this, the concern that because the county is giving this money and it's the acronyms and so forth, it's really something that is of concern versus it is truly going to be a nonprofit represented by the lodging business owners that have total control over the money. But the other part I wanted to just say, the timeline, again, I understand if people feel like this wasn't the appropriate way to do, and I'll take the blame if it wasn't, but my feeling was there is a lot, as many of you know, especially the ad hoc committee members, you've spent hours and hours and hours working on this. And we felt that not that lodging business owners don't have the wherewithal to do this. We didn't want to burden them with all this time. And what we're doing is bringing everything we've discussed to them to give feedback on so that changes can be made before it goes to petition. And if it gets the petition signatures, then it goes to the board. So it is in fact the lodging business owner's petition that would bring it to the Board of Supervisors. It is not this group. We can't do anything to the Board of Supervisors if the lodging business owners don't sign the petition in support of it. And we're giving time for the lodging business owners to provide feedback about the suggestions that we're making before it goes to that petition stage. So Katie, would you please just weigh in on, it does sound like maybe we have some concern of TDD versus TID versus all the other things.
Yeah, definitely. And Rick, everything you said was completely correct. In order to even move forward to get this in front of the Board of Supervisors, we do have to petition the lodging providers and get over that 50%. So it would be the lodging providers going to the board to get this formed. But in the sense of all these different acronyms, TDD, TID, TBID, these are even TMD. For our sense, when we came up with the name Tourism Development District, we were just deciding on a name and the acronym. The way we are forming this district is going to be in the same mechanism as a TID or a TBID. We just decide on the name. That's the only difference. It's still going to be governed by that nonprofit corporation. The government will not have a hand in the funds. The only thing we have to do is just bring it to the Board of Supervisors after that petition drive to form the district and adopt two resolutions. So there is no difference on our end what a tourism development district is compared to a tourism improvement district, a tourism business improvement district, or even a tourism marketing district. They all follow the same legal mechanism, which is the 94 law, which can be found in the management district plan in Appendix 1. They will all follow that legal mechanism and process. Hopefully that clears up everything. And if to make it simpler, we can change the name if we'd like to.
We could change it to Tourism Business and Development Investment District, which would be then now everybody would hear it as TBID.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so
And
we can name it
tourism-
whatever we want, but it is what it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah, the
Okay.
name, yeah, we can name it whatever we want, and it's still following the same legal mechanism and process as the 94 law.
Okay, and again, what we're proposing is something that will now take to the lodging business owners who can weigh in and
Mhm.
say what they think it should be called, if they think it should be something different. And that change can be made before it goes to petition status.
Correct, yeah.
I'm almost at 5 minutes. Does anybody have anything else to say? Because we just need to allow the same amount of time for whoever else has a question.
Well, there is a county collection fee.
That's the processing of how it's collected, but that's not.
Okay.
Mm,
Okay, so I'll stop. It's 5:01, so we're pretty good. So now, did you have any public comment on this timeline? And if you do, just please come to the mic because we have to have the recording and everything.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I run Indian Creek Lodge alongside Andy, my husband. Who decides who's on the board for the owners association? That's just something I'm not clear about. Like, who gets to say like this person can be on it, but this person can't, and like what dictates that? And then like once this board of the nonprofit is made, how do they go about deciding like what the money is spent on? Because I read through the paperwork and it's like, you have choices between events, marketing, park benches, that kind of stuff. So how collectively like does that get decided on? And then my last question is I'm reading a lot. Dana Hauser sent me an email like just a few days ago, and she sent me a handout is what she called it. And on the handout it was going through like the different things that services this would provide to businesses. And then my question is, I see a lot of like promotion for businesses in the TDD. Is that individual promotion or is that promotion to Trinity County as a whole? So like would my lodge, Indian Creek Lodge, would I get individual promotion as that business? Or is it just gonna be like visit Trinity County all the time? So yep, pretty much it. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just looking at this, and some of her questions were about the timeline. Some of them are really about the next item, which is the management district plan. So from a timeline, let's take a minute or however much time, under 5 minutes, to answer the questions about who decides who is on the board, And then I think the rest of those questions all need to fall under the next item because they're part of the management district plan. Is that correct, Katie?
Yeah, that's, I would
Okay.
say so. Mhm.
So specifically to the question about who decides who is on the board, um, again, I'll take a shot and then others can weigh in. So what we are doing in our outreach is, as we talk to people, see if they're supportive, we're also asking, would you be willing to be on the board? And then at some point, we have to come up with a proposed board from that and put that forward out as part of the petition. And so so we can, as we're doing this, we can say, oh, well, John wants to be on it and Hannah wants to be on it and whoever, else wants to be on it. And that can all again be fed back in the exchange before the petition. But at some point we have to lock it down and say, okay, this is the board we're putting forward. And then the petition either goes through or it doesn't. If it's approved and the board goes forward, the board can always change later, that can be changed. And Katie, maybe you can speak to what would the process be if either somebody wanted off the board or somebody wanted on the board or anything like that? How would that happen after the fact? And then also please, clarify if I said anything wrong or whatever you need to do to answer that question.
Yeah, no, Rick, what you said was correct. Through our outreach, we would communicate with lodging providers to see if they have an appetite of joining the board of directors. And then when we hold that initial 501c6 board meeting, we would appoint those board of directors. But in the sense of if people want to join later or if they don't want to be a part of the board as time goes on, um, we could in the management district plan, talk about who or how many will be on the board, but any specifics about board makeup, we do recommend doing it in the bylaws. So then it can be amended by the board and won't have to go through a modification process of the management district plan and having to bring it back to the board of supervisors again. So any makeup about the board, I would say have that in the bylaws, and then they can be amended very easily through just the board of directors of the nonprofit and doesn't have to go to the board of supervisors to make those decisions.
Okay, so
Mhm.
so it is correct. We would gather feedback. We would come up with a recommended starting point for the board. If
Mhm.
that's approved, the bylaws that are associated with that would then be used by that existing board to address
Mhm.
changes in the board, electing new
Correct.
members, replacing
Mhm.
members, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it makes
Okay,
it way easier and doesn't have to be being brought back to the board of supervisors.
okay. And did any other board members want to weigh in on this a little bit?
Yeah, I would say, because we have not drifted any bylaws to go with the nonprofit, but I think
Mhm.
also like talking about who is on the board of understanding like what is the representation? Are we doing districts? Are we doing areas? Like I know for me, Lewiston's very different than Northlake. Like who are those people that are representing that we're picking? And we have not drafted any of that yet.
Mhm.
I have experience serving currently on 3 nonprofit boards who are two of them. All 3 of them are the same 50c6 that this board will create. Is elections are annual. One board I sit on has 11 board members that change out. Usually there's not 11 people interested, so there's always vacant seats. The other 2 boards have 5 and 7. So it just depends on how the bylaws are written. The board members write the bylaws, the board members determine when elections are. The board members essentially have all the control of how that board is handled. And decisions are made by majority vote of that board only, not by any outside board.
Anything else that we want to say in this case? And again, we will absolutely come back to the other questions. They're just in the next item, if you don't mind. Okay, and a good point too, I think, Leah, that you made was we still have on the agenda and the timeline to work through the
Mhm.
bylaws as a draft. And again, happy to have input from whoever wants to participate. That's a great thing about the ad hoc is if like the people in the room said, hey, when you draft the bylaws, we'd like to sit in the room with you and work with you. They can do that. We can't
Mhm.
here as a whole group. So as we do outreach, we could see that too. We should probably be asking, well, we've got to still write the bylaws. Do you want to sit in on that? Do you want to sit in on some of our ad hoc committee meetings? All that stuff can be done. Okay. All right, so we're still within our time. Any other public comment on this subject? Okay, so we're about to move into number 2, which is the review and approve draft TCDD management district plan, basically the management district plan that was part of the questions that I heard and part of Dana's questions as well. So, Katie, why don't you start us out, and then we'll, again, ask board questions and public comment.
Okay, great. So the management district plan is in the agenda material section. As we move down further, hopefully everyone can see my screen. This just gives an overview of the location, services, the estimated budget, what we're proposed annual assessment rate is at that 3%. Collections by the county will happen at the same time as TOT is collected, so on a quarterly basis, and having that 5-year term, hopefully starting the beginning of August 1. And then the management would be that nonprofit corporation we're hoping to form, which is the Trinity Tourism Development. That's what the name we decided on. So they would be the owners association managing the day-to-day functions, and then also having to provide that annual report to the Board of Supervisors each year. As I go further down, myself and the ad hoc committee came up with this impetus, which is like, why now? Why a tourism district right now? So we came up with some reasons for why we want to form a district or tourism district right now, and can totally have any suggestions or any changes to this impetus. But we talk about the need to increase occupancy, needing to compete with neighboring counties, put in that table that I gave you guys previously with the comp set, and having Trinity County here, if we had that 3% rate and the TOT's 5%, we'd be at one of the lowest still. So there's still some room to grow for Trinity County in competing with neighboring destinations. We also talk about stable funding for tourism promotion and how tourism marketing works. So those are the 4 items that the ad hoc committee and myself came up with. So if any changes you'd like, please let me know. Or if this looks good to you, we can definitely move forward as how it's written too. I can stop there if you'd like to, just if there's any
Sure,
comment from the.
let me just see if the board has questions before we go to public comment.
Yeah.
Anything from the board? Again, I know that we go through this, but we're going through it each time to make sure and also to get public comment. And these are the kinds of things that in our one-on-one discussions or webinars or virtual meetings, I should call them, town hall meetings, whichever, that we would be talking through a lot of this and getting feedback, because at some point we have to lock it down and take it to petition.
Mhm.
Okay, so if no questions,
Okay.
then I'll come back to public comment. So
Mhm.
the folks that are here, that now we're talking about the management district plan, so we will answer some of your questions, but if you have more, you can take some more time. You're good? Okay, John, did you have something that you wanted to comment about this part, which is that plan that specifies the 3%, the 5 years, how the money's spent, all those sorts of things? Yeah, pie chart, yeah, all that part of that plan. That's what we're talking about now. So if you have public comment about that, we got your 3 minutes.
So it's my understanding, once this money's allocated in your pie chart, everybody's got this. My question is why is this board or the development of this, what's the 40,000 per year for the administration? I mean, we're talking about, we're going to put that towards hiring somebody. I mean, what are we going to hire them to do? But if that was the case, if we were going to hire an advertising company, wouldn't that would just come out of the sales and marketing part? I mean, are we required to have somebody on staff, some administrative, or are we paying somebody to administer and and look at this? I mean, that's one of the questions I have. The other question I have, and we're circling back to this, and again, I explained, I don't care about the acronym. You could call it whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying that there is a difference between a public and private, because you guys are generously donating public funds to create this. And whereas the lodging owners, the assessed, pay for the creation of a T-bid. They are two separate things. I don't care what you call it, the Trinity, that has nothing to do with it. There are two separate distinctions, and I can't seem to get anybody to understand that. The TDD is a public and private partnership. Do you, nobody's gonna, the T-bid is the assessed properties join together and they form a district, and then they approach the supervisors, and the supervisors have to approve it, and then they start collecting. That way, for example, 5 of us back in 2016, I don't know if anybody saw this. I mean, this is the Civitas from 2016. 5 of us businesses could force every single one of the TOT taxed people in this county, 5 businesses could force every single one of them into this T-bid district. Think about that. How popular do you think we'd be? We're going to really cram it down your throat. We don't care what you guys want. And come to think about it, it would really be nice because we didn't have all these Airbnbs and all of this. But if you want to know how you get somebody's vote, it's on page 11. If you want to get somebody's vote, you put in there that you're going to put a boat ramp in at Trinity Lake. I don't know what that costs, but I don't think we'd make enough money in 5 years to pay for that. Doesn't take a smart person to figure out who was going to vote and be put in for that. They weren't even in our district. Our district was the 299 corridor when this first started. Would include Indian Creek and the motels on 299 corridor. That's what it was going to include. When they didn't see that they were getting enough votes, they went out to the North Lake. And it's like I told them, you know, when we start including the houseboats into the TOT, then the North Lake can have some kind of say as to what's going on in here.
To stop again. Thank you. Yep.
I don't understand why we're paying, you know, 200,000.
So, 2 things. And Katie, I just really need you to help with, it sounds like John is referencing some place he sees the acronym TDD and associating that with a different kind of district than what we're setting up. So are you aware of some other kind of district that has the initials TDD that is different than what we're setting up?
Not before John has mentioned that there's a different
Okay.
type.
so-
But sorry.
No, I'm gonna say, so I just want to clarify again, we can call this whatever we want. It is a entity that acts exactly like is in fact a tourism business investment district. We've just chosen the name Tourism Development District. The county is just trying to provide the funding to get it going and will not have any involvement other than, as Dana highlighted, we are the arm that collects the money and gives it to the nonprofit because somebody has to do that. And we do that for TOT today. But the county doesn't get any money. The county doesn't have any say. The county doesn't do anything. It is an investment district. We have currently proposed a name of Tourism Development District. But it absolutely is controlled. And as I heard John say, you know, because it's a weighted vote based on how much TOT was paid in the last year, then the largest lodging providers have the biggest vote. And so you could have all of the lodging providers say yes and all the small ones say no, and you know, who knows, I don't know the number of that, how that would turn out, but there is a heavy weighting towards the people that have paid most TOT. That's just part of it, and that's, I think, intended to be a fairness thing. So again, we can have conversation after the fact to try to get through the miscommunication or misunderstanding, but it is absolutely the investment district approach that I think John is referring to. In terms of the question about why we've put forward right now the allocation that we have in that pie chart, which has, you know, X% going to, or X amount going to administration, I'm going to let the ad hoc committee weigh in on that. And I know there was one thing to explain, it's if we're paying people to do things and there's an administration aspect of that all gets charged there, but just help us understand how you came up with this proposed allocation of funds.
So I think I can answer both your questions, according with the pie chart situation. We just created, a percentage that we think the board would like. We can very easily adjust percentages. We also included like a long list of things you could spend the money on, just to give an idea of things you could spend the money on. But the pie chart is definitely adjustable other than, the 2%. And we kept in the administration 20% in case you guys do find a project where you want to hire somebody. The money's there just in case you need it. There is a little bit of overlap that can go in. So if you had a big project you wanted to spend for the entire county and it's a sales, you could dip into the attraction or vice versa. So we just kind of created a starting point for you. But it's nothing set in stone yet. So definitely feedback. If you guys feel it needs to go a certain direction, we can adjust it. It didn't matter to us because we are not the ones that are going to be spending this money. So we were just trying to give you guys a starting point. The pie chart is just a starting point. It's just options on what you could spend the money on. That's it. We left a lot of options in there. And essentially the board will decide how that pie chart is set for each year. If you feel like more than 50% needs to go on sales, your board will vote, decide, and change it. It's all up to the board.
Very clearly, the nonprofit board.
The nonprofit board, the governing board of the funds, yes.
Thank you. And
then,
oh, go ahead.
and then real quick on, so John mentioned that the TDD was public and private and the T-bid is assessed only. The definition of public and private, I'm assuming, is that it's the government, general public businesses and the assessed. Is that, I don't know if John's allowed to answer me, but I'm assuming that was the definition.
I think we just need to keep on our side for now.
Right, okay. That what we have drafted in the current, which I have a copy for you, John, it does say that it is for the assessed only businesses that will govern the money. So whatever document from 2014 is no longer accurate, as there's one that supersedes that I have for you.
And did you have something, Leah? initially?
Yeah,
That is-
so I think two things on the categories. The recommended numbers of in each of these was an average of what most other T-bids or TIDs do. The 20% is usually either like the lowest or the recommended. That was from Civitas. It is something to understand that if you are hiring, if you need someone as a staff, that there's potential in that in the administrative costs or in these other, it is written out that they could be in the destination attraction or in sales and marketing. But it's not only that, it also covers rent, like telephone charges, legal fees, accounting fees, postage, administrative soft insurance, and general office expenses. So there's a lot within that. And then, but then it's also written right below, Katie has it up right there that says between each category, no more than 15% of the total budget per year. So those percentage, if that's too much for that year that you didn't use that, it can go to a different, to either the sales and marketing, or it can go to the reserve. It's a lot of times with these, it takes a while for these to even get developed and start. So you're not going to be using some for the funds to really get creative, or you're having an outside marketing person really helping develop it. But everything that we did in the services was try to be extremely broad, because if it's not in the plan, you cannot do it. So being very clear that like things might seem really odd, like, oh, we would never do that, but maybe one day you do. I don't know. But, and then if it's not in here, we can't do it. So that's kind of some of the categories.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to cut us off there to just again have some consistency. And so what I have as remaining questions that now fall within this area were, um, once established, how does the board go about deciding how the money is spent? And then kind of digging in a little bit deeper when we talk about promoting businesses. Well, do you mean promoting my business? Do you mean promoting business in general? Do you mean promoting Weaverville? Do you mean promoting, that kind of a thing? So I guess, again, starting with ad hoc and then Katie, if you guys can weigh in on that.
Sure. So the money's gonna be spent, it's decided by your board. Honestly, I could foresee the chambers in the area having a project that is maybe more costly, presenting it to your board, seeing if you guys wanted to participate in the project. I mean, I could see things like that being brought to you. Only because if potentially $200,000 a year is a lot of money to figure out how to spend for a board to decide. People could bring projects to you. You could come up with your own projects. It is, we kept, Leah said, we kept it very broad so that you had more control over the pie chart than us. We just started it. Also, nonprofit boards can change things like this every year or however your bylaws are written. So we tried to keep the power on your board, not this board.
But if it's not in the plan, they cannot spend that on something else.
So I
But I
think
think-
trying to,
It can be
Right.
open for interpretation, like we left it to where it
Yeah.
could be open for interpretation
Mhm.
for your benefit.
and so ultimately, again, back to this, well, who ends up on the board? They would have theoretically this 200,000 or more a year that they would then decide within a pie chart that is approved. Doesn't have to be this pie chart, but a pie chart. We can allocate the money this way and we can use it for advertising. We can use it for signage. We can use it to do big promotion on the 4th of July because we think we need to bring more people during that. Or we can do that all in the shoulder seasons because that's where we really need the businesses in the shoulder seasons. And we're already busy enough in the summer or, whatever. But it would be that board deciding and spending the money however they want. And so I think to your point, it could be saying, well, let's promote Indian Creek Lodge because that's one of the first ones they see as they come in on 299, and then that'll help get other business and they'll refer out to others. Or they could say, we're never going to promote a single business. We're just going to promote events. But again, that would be your board making those decisions. Does that answer your questions? I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think to the promotion point really quick, and what Rick's saying, and I agree that it can be both. I've seen it in other areas where it's individual businesses, but it's also, you're representing the county as a whole. So you need to be able to make sure that everyone's equally represented on there in the different areas. So that it won't just be like Weaverville getting, but you want to make sure that it's fair to all because we are representing the whole county. But it's also like, so it can be a little bit of both. Maybe your market, it's wherever there you want to take marketing or recommended for marketing to go. So it could be also the business and that's working with the boards on there and having ability to do that.
I would even think, and Katie, this may be a good time for you to weigh in, that the board could say something like, we want to allocate $50,000 as a matching fund. So anybody in the membership that's spending money to develop tourism will match your funds up to $50,000. And I'm just making stuff up. So there's just lots of different ways. Today, through the TOT, we get a little over $300,000 a year, but really only about 70,000 of it comes back to be used for tourism. This, if we got the 200,000, more than triples that. And so it's, as it was kind of said, it on the one hand is not much money to support tourism. Leah could speak to the Siskiyou group, what they're getting a year for this, but it is a lot of money still. And so the board would really have to figure out what's the best way to spend that. And why don't you real quickly, what's the amount that Leah, Siskiyou is generating through theirs right now? Do you know? Or Katie, do you know?
We just looked it up.
There's a
I thought it was
chart.
5.
Katie,
Yeah.
do you have it?
I can take a quick look really quick. Give me like,
500.
Yeah, I thought it
Okay.
was 500.
yeah,
Okay.
I believe it's around 500.
Trinity County's the lowest, like the proposed amount is the lowest.
Yeah. So, and then Katie, do you have any clarifications or additions to help answer the questions that were posed?
No, I think you guys hit on really good points. Leah's right that we want to make sure that whatever's in the plan, you don't have to do everything in the plan, but as long as it's in the plan, you can do those services. So like we said, we want to make it as broad as we can and as flexible as can be for when the nonprofit board of directors comes and wants to make those decisions, they can, and give them as much flexibility as possible.
Okay.
Hmm.
Any other public comment on this section? Okay. So,
Can we still work on the management? Is
oh
there-
yeah,
Okay.
so you guys want to come back and work on some more on the management plan? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up, and I think Dana might have had something too, that, I had a question on, if it states like when, I think would be in the plan, when we would start collecting, and some of the businesses, because we're summertime, focus here, is there like, could we start in the beginning of, is when that time starts versus like, after new reservations, or how that works?
Yeah, so right now in the duration, so this is just on page 3, it talks about starting August 1st. We can definitely change the start date if you want. But right now we have in the plan to start August 1st or as soon as thereafter. So that gives us some flexibility in case, the petition drive takes a little bit longer or some some process takes a little bit longer. We have that in there as well. But we can change the date of the start of the collection whenever. For those that already have reservations and need to implement this, they would have to start implementing this assessment rate at those dates. I'm not too sure of the best possible way, but collection would be beginning on whatever date it is written in the plan.
Okay, so right now it says August 1st, it could be adjusted, but once
Mhm.
we finalize for the petition, then it has to start that way.
Mhm.
Okay.
We
Leah,
should
does that-
probably change that.
So what are you thinking?
I'd say either winter time or like a beginning, I don't know, like,
It's just in the middle of tourist season. And
yeah, I'm
so,
trying to think of outside the season, and enough time that people can prep for some of their, if they need to prep their systems, that, it's like by this certain time, it gives them a window of when this is established to that time.
So what would you recommend as a change? Again, it's a proposed and we'll get feedback as you
Yeah,
guys do your
right.
outreach, but what would you propose as a starting point instead of August 1st?
would the
I would
first
say like push it back like to December, or like something like
of
that.
the year, would that be too far out? I don't
We
know.
could do-
If you're $200,000 a year and you go out 4 months, then you just lost a
Yeah.
third of the year.
Right.
But again, you don't want to make it an administrative burden that they're gonna like, well, thanks a lot. Now I
Yeah,
can't
'cause they
get
have
through
to
my
make
busy season because you're making me do this.
Right.
But it
Gives
also, the
them
sooner
time
the
to
better from a
warm.
financial standpoint.
Yeah, maybe gives them time to get used to the idea or get their systems ready, because maybe they have to change
Mhm.
the setup.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I've heard October, I've heard just January. What do you, again, we're gonna get feedback when we do our outreach, but what do you want to have in the feedback? October 1st or January 1st?
I would go to January or,
So what did Siskiyou County do?
that's a good question. I'm not sure from that, but I just know from our businesses, I think that's a really challenging timeline, and a lot of people, especially like the week-long stayers, are already booked for their season. So to have to make them come back and pay, that's not fair. And a lot of them are busy till through September on some of them when the weather's nice. So, and I think it would take time.
Okay. I'm gonna hold on to that thought for a minute. Are there other things that you wanted to bring up during this section? And I know,
Ye-
Dana, you did.
Could there be a reprieve? Could there be collection thing in August, but a reprieve for those who've already booked?
Would be a Katie question.
Katie, or did you hear that?
Sorry, it was hard to hear, Dana. Could you repeat
Oh,
the
I'm
question
sorry.
again?
Could there be an reprieve for those who've already booked for August? So that, I mean, it still would require, folks to, get their systems up and running. But I just wondered if there's ever been any talk of starting the assessment fee and, if it was September, moving it, more into fall and then giving businesses, some kind of reprieve.
So Katie, can there be any flexibility in that, or is it all or nothing?
I haven't heard of other districts doing that before. I could look into it, but I would say it's an all or nothing.
Would be my guess as well.
And
Yeah.
then, do you know when, I remember hearing from Siskiyou County that it took them a year to get things,
Mhm.
kind of rolling. So, what was that about? Did they initially pick a date and then it drug out or what? Do you know?
So I think they were talking about how like the funds come into them. I don't know how often they
Oh.
collect. But to get all those funds on a consistent basis, I think it was up to a year to get enough funds to actually start doing all the services. So they still started collecting. And I just looked their July 1st start date. So I believe they're doing fiscal years for Siskiyou.
Okay, thank you.
So what
Mhm.
I think I'm going to do at the end of this section, I'm going to open up public comment again, since we have some
Okay.
people in the room. They can give us some feedback about that.
Alright.
But I want to have a whole set of things that they can give
Yeah.
comment on.
Okay, so Katie, if you can flag that. And then the other part is, when we talk about the assessment of it getting increased to that 1%, there was also some, either not having it go to 5%, or if
Mm.
no, waiting, giving them time. So like, because they said like, oh, if the board votes in immediately that they want it to go up that 1%, again, it's very hard for them to just up and change some of that and some people's systems. So to either just keep it at the 3% for that time, or have like a waiting period before we can do the increase. That's the other thing.
Well,
wanted to bring that up.
interesting. And would you, is it because it was only a 1% increase a year if the board chose, so they would have to wait a year to raise it. Are you
Yeah,
saying
so
wait
I
longer?
think making it clear that either they have to, because how it's, wait, maximum percent. Because we don't really have it say wait a year.
I think it
Is that correct?
I think it does.
No more than 1% a year.
Yeah, no more than 1% a year. So the board could come in,
And just
after
immediately do
change.
it? Okay.
but so they're saying either like wait for the time or keep it at 3%.
Okay.
After
That's-
1 year or something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
So Katie, you're
Mhm.
hearing that.
Mhm.
My thinking is, maybe we do want to add to the documentation that it would be a year, but no sooner than, like
Mhm.
12 months after the
yeah.
initial funds are assessed, if you
Mhm.
will. And then to your point, otherwise, do you also want to say that, and again, we'll get feedback, that we should have, and there should be a 6-month delay between when it's
Oh, yeah.
decided and when it's implemented?
Yeah.
So
Something.
that, again, I've got to make my
can't be all
system
of a sudden
changes
that they
and
have to,
yeah,
like,
like, oh, you can't make
change.
me do it tomorrow.
And it can be decreased.
Okay. So, for right now, for proposed, that we'll get some feedback on, we'll say that we would say that you would have to wait until 12 months after the initial assessments begin to be collected, and that there
Mhm.
would be a 6-month notice period before the newly increased rate would be applied.
Would go into effect.
Okay, so is everybody good with that from this side of the table?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think those
what else?
That's what I got.
Anybody else?
I also wanted to bring to the group,
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
oh, sorry. Wanted to bring up to the group if we want to change the name of the district too. If we want to go with Tourism Development District, or if we want to go to back to tourism improvement district or tourism business improvement district. I think we can maybe try to decide that now and we can change the name of the district too.
Okay,
I think
does
I'd
the, go
like
ahead.
to hear feedback from the lodging owners.
So leave, for now, leave it, but know that we
Yeah.
may change it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ask, yeah.
Yeah, and we can ask
One
here
of the
for, we can ask here for some feedback and then
Yeah.
as you do your outreach. Okay, thanks for making sure we have that still on our radar, Katie.
Mhm.
Okay, so for the people in the room, then I will kind of reopen this subject for public comment. And so the specific things that we're trying to give direction to Katie on to help pull together is, one, we would make a change that, instead of starting to assess August 1st, which would be very quickly after it was all approved, assuming it was, that it would not start until January 1st. And you kind of heard the reasons why they thought that would be good. And then the second part would be timing of changes. And we're saying maybe change it to say, can't change for at least 12 months. And if you change it, you have to give 6-month notice. And then the final thing is, do we want to change the name of the district? And again, we had come up with the Trinity Tourism District, Trinity Tourism Development District, I think. So, public comment. We have a good 3 minutes here again. Either one of you, all of you? But at the mic, please. Sorry.
Wait, but I definitely think August is way too soon. I mean, I know my lodge, we're pretty booked out for the summer right now. So I think starting in January or even February or March would be better for how we have to set it up in the system for it to take effect, and we don't out. So I think January, February would be better.
Thank you. And John, did you have any public comment on this subject? And again, most specifically, what we're looking for is that about this timing of the initial assessment and timing of changes to the assessment.
Sure. So it would be the changing of the assessment or how the money is spent, correct?
Yeah, you can go back over the other. So the thing that we were looking at is, when do we start the assessment, assuming it's approved?
That's not,
Okay, when does it, how soon could it be changed? And then still, if you want to provide more feedback about the other, we can provide that as well.
in answers towards this pie chart again. Okay, once it's been put into draft or the final, this can't be changed the first year. Is that correct? This decision is made, it can't be changed for the first year. The next one is, do we have to go back through Civitas? But we have to go through the Board of Supervisors to make any changes to this. Oh, wait a minute, everybody's shaking their head. No, I'm listening. So any changes that need to be done to this. So for example, if you're gonna give them, okay, you can't raise it for a year, but you gotta give them a 6 months notification. Unless you spell it out, I can tell you in June that I'm again gonna raise it in December within that year. If you don't word that correctly, it's the same thing as a lot of things. You got to get 6 months notice, we're going to raise this T-bid or TD. It's so, acronyms are so mundane. You could give somebody, I could tell you in January, I'm going to raise it within that year. It's still within that year, and then raise it in June. If you're going to put it in there, you can't raise this thing for 18 months. That's how you put something in ironclad. You can't raise this thing for 18 months because that's basically what you're trying to accomplish. If you're going to raise it at all. And is at the same time, it was mentioned, if you're going to lower it, does it take a year or 18 months to lower it?
Okay.
This thing to be set in stone again, because the powers that be have decided that this is where this money is going to be allocated. This can't be changed for a year. And then who changes it? And I've been listening. So when you're going to make a change to this, it has to go before the Board of Supervisors. No, so none of these changes have to. Well, then the start of the meeting, that was misinformation because that it was brought that any changes to this will have to go to the supervisors.
Sorry, but go ahead. Go ahead. Anything else? Because I want to make sure you get everything in.
I'm limited it to this particular, yeah. All right.
In response, oh, yeah, go ahead.
So you guys don't, if this thing goes through, you guys have decided, or the ad hoc or whoever, you don't want the 70,000. I can tell you as a business owner that if you, the Board of Supervisors is willing to throw another 70,000 at this thing on top of, that's there again, you guys have made the decision, you don't want it. Well, I can tell you as business owners, is if this thing goes through, we'll take that $70,000. Why wouldn't we? We'd put it right here in a pie chart somewhere, that 70,000. Now, would that be annually or just this one-time gift?
And that's your, I know, but I'm doing the timing and so forth. So that's your 3 minutes. And now we'll try to respond to some of your questions and comments.
Pie chart, another 70?
Let me clarify a couple of things. So the pie chart, whether you use a pie chart or not, there is a requirement that we have to put forward at the time of petition, how the funds will be allocated in the first year. This is a starting point. Engagement with stakeholders will decide if that this pie chart should look very different, but at some point, it's just part of the process. It has to be locked in. Any changes that want to be, that are made after that, there is, Leah, you were pointing out, I think, there can be a 15% shift between categories during the first year. But
During any,
during
for
any year,
each
yeah,
year.
yeah,
Each year.
during any year, but otherwise you're kind of in this bucket. And then for the next year, this nonprofit board would decide if they think these should be very different. The allocation should be very different. So that not the Board of Supervisors. Once this is in place, the Board of Supervisors is completely out of it. And then in terms of the extra money, the question to the Board of Supervisors was, does this group need more money to be successful in getting this in place? Not, do you want more money to use for tourism development? And so, no, the county supervisors were not saying we want to throw more money into this. We don't want to throw more money in on an annual basis. They're saying, we want you to be successful. So if you need more money to make this successful, we'll help you with that. And this board said, we don't. And the reason we don't is the only reason we needed the money is if we expanded it beyond lodging. And this group said, right now, we don't think we should expand beyond lodging. No, we're not, what we were clarifying is if the lodging piece gets established, other businesses can voluntarily participate. The 70,000 will never come.
Doesn't seem fair. I mean, if we're gonna get this thing off the ground, we're gonna need some startup money.
And,
Couldn't get for a year. So
okay,
for this to be successful and get tourism in the county, we need to think that would be a viable, don't tell me the 70,000 startup.
okay, I have to keep moving. So, all right. Katie, is there anything about our responses that you need to correct?
No, that was perfect.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is approving the minutes. I hope people have had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting. If you're okay, we need a motion and a second to approve those minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Ben, second by Leah. All those in favor? Aye,
I
thank
abstain.
you.
I wasn't here.
You abstain, okay. Hope you enjoyed your time.
Tennessee's great.
Okay,
I was in Tennessee.
okay.
Really? We got back
Abstained.
Saturday.
Okay, and just for everybody's benefit, so on our advisory board page now, there's a schedule there are minutes, there are agendas
On the website.
on the website.
Okay.
And people can now sign up to be notified when meetings are being posted and agendas are being distributed.
That's nice.
Wait, can you?
You can now. So in the normal way where you sign up to be, like keep me informed or contact me or
Oh.
whatever, now there's a box that you can check that says, yes, I want to know about board of supervisor meetings. Yes, I want to know about planning commission meetings. Now you can say, I want to know about advisory board meetings.
Okay.
And in fact, what Susie was asking, Susie Hawkins, was if you could all use that and sign up, then you'll automatically receive it instead of somebody having to remember to email it to you when we publish the agendas. Okay?
What's the website?
It's the Trinity County website, and then just search for tourism development in the search bar and you'll get to it.
What? Oh, .org.
TrinityCounty.org is then the website, but then within there, search for tourism development and it'll take you to our page.
Can we stay on there when our meetings are, or are we?
There is a calendar now that also you can subscribe to. I'll tell you what, our next meeting, we'll walk everybody through that. It took me a minute as well to find.
I was like, where is it?
Okay. Let's see, the next item is approve administrative action regarding, that was an old draft, never mind. The next thing was the next meeting date, time, location, and agenda. And this is for this meeting. And separately, I do want to ask the advisory or the ad hoc committee about, are we ready yet to start publicly sharing dates for ad hoc committee meetings or town halls or virtual or whatever? But for now, Katie, I think you, who are usually doing a lot of the guiding, have a conflict with our proposed time for next meeting. So tell us what you have in mind.
Yeah. So I am out of the office on May 19th for some personal reasons. So I won't be able to have our tourism development advisory board meeting on that Monday, but I'm available any other day that week at 3:30 if we want to change to either Tuesday, or Thursday, or even Friday. I know Friday's kind of hard, but I'm available for sure Tuesday and Thursday at 3:30.
Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm out of town.
Okay, so Tuesday or Wednesday would work for you?
Yes.
Leah, you know?
It could possibly do Tuesday.
Okay.
Ryan?
I'm open with as much notice.
Okay.
with 2 weeks notice.
Brian, or Ben?
Well, we're gonna open up on that next Friday, so that Monday would be like my only day possible, so I would say I'd be
That's-
out any other day.
You'd be out any other day, so then we're down.
What about the Monday before?
Next week?
Next week?
2 meetings a month, right? Like, that's kind of what we're.
Well, next
aiming
week I'll be out. But we could go to the 26th on Monday.
That's a Memorial Day.
at.
Memorial Day.
Oh,
Now we're really pushing it
When
out.
we get to Yosemite.
what's that?
You won't even be able to get to Yosemite on the 26th.
Well, we don't have Dana here to say, Liam, I know we have a board meeting on the 20th, so we don't know for
Okay.
sure that we're gonna be out. And is there a LAFCO meeting? But I don't keep them here.
I could check on
Meeting of the month?
the 20th, it's gonna be pretty full.
Does it? Okay.
It could go shorter than I think, but it could go longer.
Well, group, I mean, everybody here though is good for Monday other than Katie, is that correct? Because we could have the meeting without Katie. And just
Definitely.
keep moving forward. Because that sounds like it's the best option for everybody else. Okay, so I think we'll just stay with the meeting dates that we have.
Okay.
And
And then I'll,
we'll expect that we won't have Katie with us and we'll just try to keep moving. And
Mhm.
I think what we're primarily looking for at that point is where are we with the feedback and
Mhm.
and specifically things like Katie is waiting on us to tell her. So are we good to go ahead and forming the nonprofit with the name we've chosen? Or are you getting feedback that it should be something different? Are we good with the 3% and the 5 years and the other kind of key things Do we have some proposed board member names that we can start to put together and share collectively, cohesively versus what we're individually collecting? Anything else, Katie, that you would highlight that we should make sure if we're meeting without you, we're still covering to keep things moving?
No, that sounds great. I think if we can focus on that for the next meeting, and I'll work with the ad hoc committee to make sure we have all the necessary agenda items that maybe they could help lead the conversation with. And then hopefully everything will be covered while I'm gone on that meeting.
Katie, I have a question about the address list, and we, received an address list, and then we received a phone list, and we received the emails in part, and then I think yeah. So I was just wondering, do you have the top 10 included in that?
I can include it in an email of the top 10, but it wouldn't give anything away about revenue or anything like that, but I
Actually,
can
top
definitely do that.
15 would work, because then I
Top
wouldn't have to
15,
go all the
okay.
way up to Hayfork and then Burnt Ranch. Okay.
Yeah, I can do do you want top 15 of all of the lodging providers?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm pretty sure. Just so I
Okay.
can, it's just so,
Focus in your district, or you want?
yeah, focus on my district. Oh,
Okay,
not
so,
all of them.
so you
just-
want top 15 in your districts?
Yeah.
in your
Okay.
district.
It's,
Okay.
well, I could go to bar 717 first, or I can go over here, and, and I've been doing the same thing. I've been
Yeah.
kind of like,
Okay, thank you.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I can
Anybody-
definitely provide that.
Anything else of questions that you need to clarify before we move forward? Because otherwise we're locked in, done with the agenda?
I did read something today, just now, just below, that legal thing on the pie chart, the legal money that's, in case for legal affairs, and I don't remember, noticing that before, and I was just wondering, under what circumstance would that be? Is that just, has to be in there?
Yeah, we'd like to keep it in there just in case.
Yeah, she knows what I'm talking about.
And you're really just, you're just trying to cover the bases so that if that nonprofit board needs to spend some money on legal, they have the money, that they have the authorization to do so.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you all. I know we're never quite done at 5. Appreciate you. And
Yeah,
we are
have a
adjourned.
good one.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Uh-huh.
Hey, John. What's that for?
Oh, Bob instead of T-Bid?
Just Bob in
Call it-
general? Doesn't stand for anything? Well, thank you.
Well,
Hey,
isn't
Josh.
it in some of the paperwork, isn't it TCD?
Yeah, Trinity County.
Because it's just us approving the minutes and so
Okay.
forth, so.
So how does that differ from what we're calling TTDD? Because the TTDD,
No,
TTD.
TC. Oh, the TDD, the Tourism Development District. But then the TC is just saying Trinity County
Got
on
it.
top of it.
So we don't have any TTDD going here.
No.
Trinity Tourism